Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Philip Wilkerson, coming to you live. I had no agenda. I just wanted to come on here because of some things that came top of mind. A little bit of a story. So, yesterday, I had the good fortune of doing a presentation about holistic care to a group of financial aid administrators. Shout out to Jackie for this opportunity. And it was a webinar. And for those that don't know, I used to work in financial aid very briefly right after I got my master's. And during this webinar, we were all talking about ways to holistically support students. And, even though it's been a long time since I've been in the financial aid space, this was more so a webinar that they normally have about policies and things that relate to it. This was more so like, what would you do if you saw a student in need? Who do you connect with? And uh, how to just find resources and look at that student as a holistic person, not just their financial aid package. And I remember saying some things as I shared from my counseling background and diminishing myself, saying, oh, I know this sounds simple. I know this sounds not super sophisticated that, walk that student to the counseling services or do this and that. And shout out to Jackie. She sent me a comment from one of the attendees that said, Philip Wilkerson shared really great insights, but he diminished himself because he said that the things that he shared were very simple. But in actuality, it was super helpful. And I needed that reminder to bring me back into a place of power, saying that while things are very simplistic, they have a monumental impact. And I think one of the things that I shared that I thought was a very simple statement is that we all have this need to belong, and that the need for belonging does not end when we become adults, right? We think about there's books, why all the black kids sit at the same table at the lunch table, or all these things about, popularity and wanting to fit in. And I thought about it, and I feel like sometimes the world is still one big high school in a sense that when we go out into the world, we still want to feel accepted. We still want to feel like we belong. We still want to feel like, we can be our authentic selves, but then by being our authentic selves, we fit in with a group. We are social beings, and studies have shown that isolation and a sense of not belonging has a detrimental effect on your well-being, both mental health and physical health. And that need to belong and the effect on your mental health and physical health does not stop in childhood or adolescence. It continues with you for the rest of your life. And I thought about that. We always, throughout every phases, right? Like at the kids, we want to fit in at the lunch table. At work, we want to fit in with our coworkers and the people we're working with. When we're elders, we want to fit in with our peers and other elders and feel like, it's really sad. There's still, those things where, a married couple lives together forever and one passes away, you see the other person's well-being tank because they're lonely, and loneliness is a silent killer. And so I think about that in a sense that as I, work on my studies, I really do believe that belonging is a core principle in all spaces. When you belong, you do better academically. When you belong, you do better athletically on a team. When you belong, you do better at work. When you do, and so I really feel that way. And I can say as a test subject on my own, a test subject on myself particularly, I feel like I've done the best I've ever done professionally in my life in a workspace because of the sense of belonging that I have at the community of George Mason. Where I feel like regardless of, like in my colleague space, I feel like I belong as an alum of the university. I feel like I belong in the classroom as a PhD student. I feel like I belong. And that holistic feeling of all these different spaces and identity make me feel uh, that I belong. And with that, I can still make mistakes. I don't have to be perfect, but it's a good feeling. I actually can feel it in my stomach when I step on that physical space of campus. I feel good about myself. And you can think about, I feel like that when I step in other places, when I'm around my brothers and Alpha Phi Alpha and I go to a meeting, I can feel in my stomach, feel it physically, that I feel better. And so there is a psychosomatic feeling to knowing when you enter spaces that you belong. Now, the World Kindness Report just came out today, or not today, but there was a meeting about it in Gallup, and they're saying that young people, and it's very ironic because I'm sharing this message on social media, that they are feeling less life satisfaction as their social media usage increases. And so, one of the thoughts to think about is, does belonging always necessarily have to be a physical interaction with others, right? Because I do feel like I feel community when I talk to my friends, my best friends, and my best friend Hillard lives in Idaho. I feel like when I call him and talk to him, while we're not physically in the same space, but I don't think that's the same as social media usage, right? That's a different form of communication and a different sense of belonging. Um, and so I do kind of get it, right? This digital thing where, people's like, well, that's my friend. We send each other reels and memes, but I don't know if that really innates or really uh, is the same effect, right? As an in person. I think digitally when you meet on virtual meetings, I think it feels good, but I don't know that if you had a completely remote job, do you feel like you really belong at your work? If it, yeah, what? Chill. Okay, well, later. And so one of the things I think about is when I think about that that notion of belonging. One of the things I think about is how um, I lost my train of thought because someone called me. Oh, that being virtual, completely virtual, is going to really increase it. If you feel that same way, if you only interacted with your colleagues virtually, do you get that same feeling of belonging as if you still connected with your colleagues, even in a hybrid modality, right? Do we have to see each other in person? I don't know. That would be something I would love to investigate. But I do agree that the social media is not a good substitute for real, authentic connection. Uh, Connecting with someone and sending reels back and forth does not feel the same as actually calling them or talking to them on the phone. Or I'll be honest, like even sending an email and reading their words probably hits different than just social media and reading their posts and comments. So I kind of agree with the notion. I'll put in the chat for those the World Kindness Report or World Happiness Report for this year. I'll put that in the chat and share it in real time. So we'll see if that pops up. But yeah, that's it right there. Let me know what you think. Thank you, for those that took a time to listen. I just wanted to go live real quick, nothing more crazy and things like that. And just let me know what you think about belonging for you. Holla.